we're going to ask all of our guests this at the end. How would you like to die? Less than a minute left.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Cantrell, and we're really excited to get this thing started. Our podcast focuses on a person's life up to now. We see where they began, what they've done, and where they'd like to go, and also how they'd like to go. Joining me is my co-host, Jamie McCacken. How are you, Jamie?
Good, Charlie. How are you?
Good. This episode, we've got a great guest. They are a very talented actress, a former Miss New Mexico, and an occasional literal clown, a real clown. Please welcome Taylor Rey. How are you, Taylor?
Hello, doing good. Happy to be here.
Your background is really interesting, and we just wanted to ask, what is the overlap between acting, pageantry, and clowning?
Yeah, I actually, it's such an overlap. They really are so connected. Acting and clown are really connected, and I think any actor will tell you. Clown training is some of the best acting training that you can get just because it teaches you how to be really present in the space. I think great acting is allowing a moment to change you and taking in what's coming to you and responding to that, which is literally what clown is. But clown and pageantry, I think are very connected. And I would like to think that I might be one of the only, if not the only, crossover clowns that came Miss America. I don't really know how big that pipeline is, but I think it might just be me that's become a clown after doing Miss America. And I think in that world, they're so similar because the clown is standing on stage and asking to be judged, and asking to be loved, really, which is exactly what you're doing in a pageant. You really are just standing there and trying to show yourself and accepting judgment for that and hoping that there is love there. Hopefully without desperation, but
Yeah.
they're very similar. It's very human.
We're also curious about when, a lot of the overlap between those three aspects of your career is live performance and performing in front of that audience. Like you mentioned, kind of asking to be loved, looking for that. What made you interested in performing? How did your interest grow?
Yeah, I've been on stage since I was very, very small. My parents were both performers. My mom was a ballerina and my dad was a musician. And I think both of them, they didn't ultimately pursue that professionally. They both got to a point where it was like, you have to make the choice, and they both went business. And I think they kind of wish that they wouldn't have. So they sort of encouraged me to stay in the arts. But I did ballet from a really young age. I started when I was 3. And there's a video of me in my first ballet recital. I was terrible. Loved being on stage. I didn't like the ballet part, but I loved the performing part. And you can see it immediately because I'm not doing the dance. And when the dance is over, the other girls go off. And I go to the front of the stage and I'm blowing kisses because I'm getting my first applause on the stage. And the teachers are picking me up and trying to waving. And my mom always shows it and she's like, a star was born, which I guess for better or for worse, I really loved it from then and grew up doing theater and doing dance. And now here I am in New York and doing my best out here.
Yeah. No, it's great. I met you doing UCB improv. Super talented, very funny, great characters. And it's your background, it's very interesting that pageantry combined with comedy. When did you start pageantries?
I started when I was small also. My mom put me in Cinderella. It was the Cinderella pageant. I think I was 4. Similar to ballet, I didn't like it at all. I think I just never really liked being in something that was very structured. But I liked being on stage, and I had a dance that I did. If you've seen Little Miss Sunshine, it's kind of like that, or a Toddlers and Tiaras. It was sort of that kind of situation. And I won taught personality. And it's because I loved the interview, and I loved the talking, and I loved the performing. I wasn't good at the walking part, but I started that, and then I did that when I was small, and when I was in middle school, high school, I did Miss Teen the Miss Teen America program, which is also like a scholarship pageant. Miss America is a scholarship organization. It started because my mom bought me this really nice dress for prom when I was like 15, I think. And I really wanted it. And she said, if I buy you this, you have to compete. And I said, sure. And I did very well. And then ultimately I decided I wanted to go for it when I was older, and I ran for Miss New Mexico and ultimately won and did Miss America, which is crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like your family, your parents were very supportive of your going into performing into pageantry and ballet and all of those things. And I know you mentioned that they were artists previously as well. Is pageantry kind of a family business? Was that something that your mom did when she was younger?
Yeah, actually it is. And I didn't really think about it that much until I got older, but my mom did Miss Junior Miss, which I don't fully understand. It's not Miss America. It's like a smaller system. She did that when she was in high school. And then my dad's mom did pageants in El Paso, where we're from, way before that, which is really interesting. I don't know what system that was, but yeah, actually, we do kind of have a history of doing pageants in my family.
Yeah, both sides.
Both sides.
That's
Yeah.
impressive.
That's really cool. And you're from New Mexico, but your dad's from El Paso, Texas?
Yeah, so I was born in El Paso, which is like right on the border of New Mexico and Texas. And so I lived in El Paso for like a couple years till I was like 5. And then I moved to New Mexico, which is right like 45 minutes away.
That's cool. What was it like to grow up in New Mexico? Is it, I'm assuming, very different from New York City?
Yeah, it's really different and it's so lovely and I miss it a lot. And it smells so good in the summer when it rains because there's like a plant called creosote and it smells really nice. And it's just gorgeous. I'm very lucky to have lived there and New York because they're so different, but they're both so incredible in different ways. So I can't imagine anywhere else I would have rather been. So I'm really excited to have been in both
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm curious because, you mentioned, being from your family from Texas and then New Mexico. I definitely associate when I think of like pageants and that style of performing, I think of like Texas. Like I feel like that's kind of the classic, like that part of the American South or Southwest. I don't know what you guys identify as exactly. Do you think growing up there has informed anything about, the way you perform?
I mean, I'm sure it has. Where I'm from, or where I was born, and my family was from in Texas. I think Texans wouldn't really like claim it as Texas. It's more like part of Mexico, really, where I'm from, because we're like right by Juarez, right on the border. So kind of a different vibe there. That being said, where I went to college at Oklahoma City University, and we're kind of known as like the Miss America school. We have 3 statues of the 3 Miss Americas that graduated from there. And we have this area in the university called the Hall of Queens, where there's just like floor to ceiling pictures of all the state title holders that have graduated from there. And that's Oklahoma. So that is a very distinct brand of pageant. And so I think some of that probably informed what I grew up with. I actually think it's interesting that my dad's mom did pageants because I feel like my dad's side of the family is Mexican, and I feel like it's really unique for like the Mexican community to be doing pageants. So it's interesting that she did. I'm sure where I grew up informs a lot of the way that I perform and who I am, but I think where it informs it less in like a Southern Belle way and more in like, I don't know, kind of like a hippie granola.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's funny.
that is funny.
And why did you decide to move to New York?
Just wanted to come to New York, I think, from like a young age. I was always interested in musical theater. I grew up doing ballet, but as soon as I was old enough, I started trying to do music theater and I performed in like the community theater and I performed in like my high school and the children's theater when I was growing up. And there's not a lot of professional theater in New Mexico. So I always was like, wanted to come to New York where Broadway is. And I wanted to come for college, but it was like too expensive. It wasn't really the time. And so as soon as I graduated college, I was like, now it's the moment. I'm getting ready. And so I've been here for 7 years now, and it's great. I love New York. I love the type of theater that's being done in New York. I feel like these days I'm less interested in like Broadway or like classic musical and more so interested in kind of like off Broadway and off Broadway, like devised theater that's happening around the city, which I would not have found had I not moved here. So I'm really excited about that. I mean, I never, like Charlie, like you said, we met doing improv, which I never would have thought I was going to be doing improv, or I never would have thought I would be doing clown or knew anything about that without being there. So it's so cool just to be in the proximity of so many artists.
Yeah. That's a good segue, I think, into your work as a clown, work with clowning. When did you decide to start clowning? And it'll take us a little bit through your inspiration for that.
Yeah, I think I took my first clown class. It was 3 or 4 years ago. My like day job is I work in an off-Broadway theater here in the city. It's called Ars Nova, and we focus on producing new artists that have not been produced other places and maybe have a vision for a piece that is unique and would not necessarily be produced somewhere else. So it's a lot of like ideas for things that don't really make sense. And we're like, yeah, we love it. We'll give you a shot. And I see a lot of those shows because that's where I work. And I started seeing a lot of like physical theater performers come through. And I saw this like really incredible one-person show that I was very inspired by. And I asked the performer afterwards where she studied and like how she came to make this. And she said, oh, I'm a clown. I did clown training. I started going to this class every Tuesday. It was called Clown Gym, which is run by this clown teacher who's fabulous. Her name is Julia Proctor, and sort of like has died down, but for a while it was every Tuesday, and there were different clowns from all over the country that would come and like teach a different style of clown, and like red nose, and I took like a clown yoga class. And it was just like so amazing. And I didn't know about this type of performance. And I remember I like did a long weekend intensive, and I came home and I was telling my boyfriend, I was like, I think I found the thing that like speaks to my soul. And then unfortunately it's and since I've continued studying with different teachers, I actually just finished doing a 3-week, very intensive training with a clown teacher in the city. His name's Chris Bays, and I just finished that this summer. So I'm like fresh out with like a new perspective on it. But it's amazing. And there's a lot of space for clown performance right now and physical theater type performance. I think it's sort of like a pushback to a lot of different things. I think it's like a pushback to AI and people wanting to be seen and wanting to feel like human connection. And I think it's just like, in a way, counterculture to like whatever cool girl aesthetic or trying to act like you don't care about something. So it's really having a moment right now. I feel like now more than ever, I see clown shows popping up all over the place. Maybe it's because I'm in New York and maybe there's like a clown world here because I am seeking it out. But I don't know. Do you feel like you've seen a lot of clown spaces right now?
I've been just through stand-up. Sometimes on a stand-up show, they'll have like a clown, which in Virginia, they didn't really have it. But here, it's more prominent. And it's like, some of it is, like really, really funny, where it's like there was a guy who's just asking for trash. I think he came with like a trash bin, like he found a trash bin in the corner of the room, and he handed out pieces of trash to each of the audience members.
What's that?
Which was just kind of insane, and that was great. Yeah, it is starting to, and I've started to like learn, like in New York, it's starting to pop more. I can tell, and even within the year, it's more common. They'll be like, "Oh, they're a clown," and I didn't really know that much about clown. I think beforehand, I had an aunt who was a birthday party clown, but her job was like she was a sad clown, so she would go to like kids' birthday parties and cry. So like in the clown outfit. So that was kind of the only knowledge I knew about clowning. Would you consider it a form of stand-up or similar to stand-up clowning?
They can like exist in the same space where it's sort of like a kind of comes from street performance almost. But I think the thing that connects clown and stand-up that maybe is more similar is like the crowd work, because I feel like I'm seeing crowd work being very popular in stand-up right now. And I think just that like breaking of the fourth wall and acknowledging the room that you're in is very clown. And I think there's some crossover there.
Yeah.
Charlie, I'm just thinking about the parents hiring a clown for their kid's birthday party, and then the clown comes and just cries.
Yeah.
And like what the kids' reactions to that would be.
Right. Yeah.
It's great performance though.
She could have done some juggling. I'm not sure.
Okay.
There could have been more. It could have
Right.
been crying and a juggle as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Crying in clown. There's a lot of crying in clown class, and there's a lot of crying in clown performance. So I believe that.
Taylor, I'm curious about when the term clown, for people who are unfamiliar with clowning and like the art form and the performance of it all, it has a very specific image in mind. What are your thoughts on that? Like when you tell people that you do clowning, like what are their reactions?
Right. Yeah. I get that a lot with my family because my dad, I don't think he knows what I'm doing. I don't need to tell people because when you hear clown, often you're going to think birthday party clown and you're going to think red nose and like face paint, or you're going to think like horror movie clown. And those are kind of the two big like splashes in society. And what I'm doing is more like theatrical clown, which has, like I said, it's been like actor training for a long time. If you go like get your MFA at Yale, you're going to spend a long time learning how to be a clown because you're learning how to be like in touch with the present moment and learning how to be okay with yourself and have access to all of the emotions that you have as a human. And I think it's hard to kind of pin down a definition for what clown is. So I don't even know if I should try. I had a teacher once that said like if anybody ever says that they know what clown is, then they don't, because it's like it's so hard to pin down. I think it's just like Chris Bays kind of says it's who you would be right now in this moment had no one ever told you no. So had you not been inhibited and you were able to like lead from a place of play and curiosity, then that's your clown. A lot of people say different things. There's clown teachers that say everybody has an inner clown. There's clown teachers that say, no, they don't. Only some people don't.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm doing is it's a type of performance that acknowledges the audience. So breaking of the fourth wall. And there can be characters in that. Like you can play a character, but it's coming from you and the reactions are from you. And I think the draw right now in particular, because this clown and theatrical clown has been going on forever and people have been studying this type of performance for decades. But I think the draw in this moment is that everybody's just like so in their screen and so used to like TikTok and like one-sided interactions. So it feels so good to be in a room and be like seen by the performer. What you do is acknowledged. And it sort of turns the audience from being like an audience that's watching into like a community that's like experiencing a moment together. And the clown is sort of like leading that moment. And the audience is seeing a human who is wanting to be loved and who is like trying and often failing and responding to failure with like tears or like anger, like genuine humanity. And I think that's all stuff that we have really shied away from. It's like not cool to want something. It's not cool to try. It's not cool to be upset. And the clown like cares. The clown really cares. And so do we, so do people. And so it's like so cathartic in a way, I think, for the audience to be there and to see someone doing something and they're really trying and we see ourselves in that and like we love that because it's human and it's us. And that being said, if you go to a clown show in New York, like it's so beautiful and poetic, the idea of it. But like one of the clown pieces I did, I was like upside down and I had a face on my butt and I was like, so I don't know, that's me trying to reclaim humanity for us all. Like
Yeah. Just saving
like,
the world.
Yeah, saving the world, empathy for each other, and also, butts are funny. So there's a combination.
Right. It's honest.
Yeah. No, but I say it as a joke, but also it's kind of serious because it's like everyone is on their phone. They get into their own world. Content just became this big umbrella for everything on the internet, and people have just kind of gone into their little worlds. And it's nice for like one-on-one interactions, for just like a mental health way of just goofing off. And it's so freeing. It is kind of in a way liberating from that. And I can understand why it's now taken off in this era, which is, I didn't see that coming, but it is,
Yeah, and I started doing it a couple years ago, and it was probably, I mean, to me, I was before it was big, but like this has been big for a long time. But it's interesting because I wonder, like, we're kind of in this big bubble, and I wonder if it'll continue or what the trajectory will be or what it'll turn into. I hope it continues. I think like theater is the next big thing, because like you said, everybody's so in the screens. It's like live theater that's what's next.
Definitely, definitely. I thought it was really interesting when that one professor said, the real clown is inside all of us. Has clowning taught you anything about yourself?
Yeah, I think for sure. And I think it's like I said, very helpful as actor training. I think if you're an actor, you should probably take a clown class if you haven't. But I think if you're a human, you should probably take a clown class if you haven't, because it's really great. I guess I would say inner child healing work, because you're reconnecting with that part of yourself that's looking at the world through a lens of curiosity and like joy and playfulness, and not necessarily just like through levity and through joy and whimsy and the happiness. But I mean, if you're around kids, it's not all that. They also have like anger and rage and jealousy and these emotions that we're kind of conditioned away from, but they're part of you. And so I think clown has kind of given me a way to connect to the parts of me that I don't really get to engage with usually, especially like I'm a tall, very feminine presenting human, and I grew up doing pageants. So I come with my whatever baggage and socialization that I have, the same way that everybody does. And I think clown has allowed me to find a space where I'm allowed to still be gross and still be angry and be weird and like be mean, Not that you should embrace being mean, but you should embrace all those sides of yourself, so you're not like feeling shame and then you don't have access to the full scope of your humanness and like the big mess that's you. That particular kind of clown that's like the mean clown is called bouffant, and so I've studied that a little bit, and I found that that's given me a lot more access to myself. It's all in the scope and the lens of fun, and it's not like I'm ever genuinely wanting to upset anyone or genuinely hurt someone, but it's fun to be in an audience and there's a villain and we can all root against them. And it's fun to be the villain. And I think clowns like given me the opportunity to step into the parts of myself that I don't get to in other parts of my life.
Yeah. I feel like with stand-up, it was a little bit, in some aspects, similar, where I feel like when I reveal something that I'm frustrated with myself about, ironically, when you reveal that flaw in front of a crowd, and you find unity, like, because okay, I have this flaw, but everyone else has that flaw or some other form of a flaw. And it can, when you reveal that and people listen, and you can kind of create, they're not embracing, yeah, great, we are flawed and we're messed up, but they can, you see each other as no one's any better or no one's any worse, and it kind of all evens out, which I really appreciate a lot.
Right. Yeah, it's honest. It's honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. Nobody is perfect, and everybody has like these big mess ups, and everybody has like these big conflicts and feelings that they don't like. So it's like beautiful to be able to say like, here I am, and people resonate with that.
Going into clowning, was that a reaction against pageantry?
No, but in a way, yes. I think I am working on like a clown solo piece that one day I'm gonna get on its feet in front of people. That's about pageants, and it's kind of like a body mask piece, and I have like balloons in my butt and like a big on my belly, and it's about making yourself beautiful to the point of absurdity in the quest for like being good enough, and what happens when you try so hard and you do so much and it's not enough, and like what is the reaction to that? Because I feel like clown and pageant have that intersection, and it's so interesting, and it's such a big part of my lived experience. I think when I started doing clown, I wasn't really trying to act out against anything. I was just like curious about wanting to take a acting class. And I think the more I got into it, in a way, yes, it sort of just became a rejection of like the whatever mask that I wear all the time of feeling like I need to be polite and smiling and a particular person. And I think I got into clown and I was like, oh wait, no, this is me again. I get to be myself that I feel inside of me and like exist and have a space for that. And so it's a yes and no, because I'm making this piece, but it's not necessarily because I want to critique pageants, because I have a lot of respect for the women who do pageants and the women that I met doing them. Like I said, Miss America is a scholarship organization, so it's focused on providing money for young girls to pursue higher education, and is the biggest provider of scholarship for women in the country, which is crazy to me, but it's true. And
Yeah.
I met so many very, very accomplished women who are working so hard and doing a lot to like change the country in different ways and so many different perspectives. So I do really respect them, but at the same time, it's unusual that we have these very articulate, charismatic, successful, talented women, and the only way that they're able to like have a platform is by like spray painting themselves orange, and wearing like the 6-inch, sometimes 8-inch heels. And like I had to glue spray my butt to my swimsuit and go out. And right after that, I'm like holding a microphone and I'm answering a question about how I think money should be distributed to help with arts education in my state, because there's not a lot of money for arts education in New Mexico. And it's like, why did I have to do the swimsuit part to get to this part? So a little bit of a critique, but at the same time, just finding the connection and the like humanity in that, because it's just so universal to try and to want something and to not get it. Like only one girl wins Miss America out of like thousands and thousands that compete, just get to that level. And they try really hard. And so like, what does it look like on the other side of that? And I think clown is a really great lens to explore with.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That piece the solo piece that you're talking about sounds really cool. It sounds like a really interesting critique on that. So best of luck with that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. I have to get it on stage.
Yeah.
It's on me.
So I know we talked about earlier in our conversation about you went from ballet to doing some musical theater when you were growing up in New Mexico, and then that transition to New York to kind of pursue that. What made you decide to do musical theater? What inspired you to be involved in that?
Yeah, I've always loved to sing. And I started out dancing. I started out in ballet, and my mom loved musical theater, and she did some musical theater. My mom actually has a hole in one of her eardrums, so she is literally tone deaf.
Oh,
Actually is
Wow.
tone deaf. So she like has this story that she would tell me about. She was in a production of My Fair Lady in San Jose when she was younger, and they like stopped the production because she was singing, and they were like, "You're a dancer. Dance, don't sing." and and so I think a little bit of it is just that my mom really loved musical theater, and so I grew up watching it. I loved musical theater. And yeah, I did choir and everything. That a lot of it I think is like when I was in high school, Glee was on.
yes, pivotal, huge.
Right. No, I think it happened to a lot of us, actually. You see it a lot. You see it in New York because you see how many people have now gotten a BFA, and it's because of Glee, I'm pretty sure. But I always wanted to do that. I always loved it. I loved Barbara Streisand. I loved Shirley MacLaine. I loved Liza Minnelli. All those like old school divas, like the best of the best of the best. And I wanted to be like that. And then went to college for musical theater, moved to New York, and I still do audition for musicals, but less and less these days. I think I came out here wanting to be in the ensemble of a touring production of Legally Blonde, and that was like the end all be all for me. And now that I'm here, I resonate a little bit less with that, and I'm more interested in kind of like the devised theater that's happening in kind of smaller spaces. And also I've fallen into the comedy world with like character sketch and sketch comedy and clown, and finding that makes a lot more sense for me and like the story I want to tell right now. I think it's just like it's a crazy time to be alive. Not that it ever isn't, but particularly right now, there's just so much going on politically. And so I think like the correct response for an absurd situation is like absurdism. And so I'm telling stories through comedy, and that feels more right because it feels like I'm able to make the difference that I want to make in that place.
Yeah, absolutely. And comedy and storytelling and acting are all so intertwined. So it makes sense that that would be kind of the avenue that you'd like to go down. Cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, you were talking about like when you see the craziness of the world and the disappointment of it, to have a career in comedy for me feels very liberating because it's like, oh, I can always just have fun, that there's a catharsis for it and it can help bring joy to others, even if it's not, it's nothing crazy. It's just like a little candy bar they can have. And it feels like, some form of productivity,
Right.
even
Yeah.
if in a small way. But yeah.
Totally. And yes, and to that, I feel like it's a like a great form of escapism, and it's funny and it's nice to have levity. But at the same time, I think like comedy is a great place where you can like hold up a lens to things that are uncomfortable. Because when it's so absurd, the way that things often become, you can really blow that up in comedy and like really point a finger at it that way, in a way that I don't know. It lands for me more. Like I understand it more emotionally when I'm able to make something big and really like poke at it than if I were to like do a drama. I don't know. Somehow the big absurdity makes more sense.
Definitely.
That's interesting. You can access it more a little bit than
Yeah.
than just like a dramatic scene. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you prefer a live performance with an audience that you can relate to versus like, acting in front of a camera? What are the differences for that for you?
For me, I do. Yeah, I love theater. I love being a part of something that's made every night from scratch, brand new. I think that there's nothing else like that. That being said, I've not done that much film. I've done some, but I mostly do theater. And you can still have that same feeling, but what I love, like I said, is like that feeling of presence. So particularly in theater, we're all in a space where something is happening together. It's like the audience, but also the actors on stage are connecting. And then there's like stage hands. And now, like, since I work in arts administration, I know how many people are behind that, not only literally behind the scenes, but also like in offices and helping to create this thing. Everyone is plugged in at the moment when the show goes up. And it's like, I mean, it's like, it's magical. It's sacred in a lot of ways, this act of.
I love that. And it's something that's happening all together. And that's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And also wondering, do you have any big takeaways about yourself or the human condition that you've learned through live performance?
Yeah, I think it's just like how big we are as humans. I think like you see it in little kids. Little kids are enormous. Every feeling that they have is giant. They're screaming, they're laughing, they're like when they cry, they really cry. When they're mad, they're really mad. And I think like as we grow up, we lose touch with that. And you can't get anything done, frankly, if you're that way all the time. So on one level, it makes sense. But theater, like a play, is the biggest moment of those characters' lives. So we're like dropping into this moment where they're allowed to be enormous, and like all of us have that in us. And so when we see it on stage, we like recognize it, and it's like, oh yeah, I understand that. I understand that feeling. And I think I learned that from theater, and like I appreciate people more because I know everybody is just this like vast vessel of so many emotions and thoughts and feelings and capabilities. Whereas like if I was in an office and I was like forever just trying to be in a little box and on my computer and trying to come out of that, I think I would have missed that. And so I'm like grateful to be in the performing arts sphere.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because I am day to day. My 9 to 5 is I'm in an office and I'm staring at a computer screen. It's really hard for me to have empathy for the person who's emailing me something that's annoying me about my day. So I can imagine that human connection, and you guys are kind of playing together and empathizing with each other can be really refreshing to be able to enact that with someone else.
Yeah, it's called a play because you're playing.
Oh yeah. True. Yeah. Has there ever been a character that you've portrayed that you feel like you resonate strongly with that reminded you of yourself?
Yeah. My favorite musical is Little Shop of Horrors, and I played Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors, if you've seen it. And it's like, it's a really silly musical, but I just loved her and like resonated so deeply with her because everybody in that musical really wants something. And in any musical, everybody really wants something. Otherwise, like, what are we watching? Who cares? She really, really just like wants to be loved and like wants to be accepted, and she's trying, and like she has this terrible boyfriend, but I really resonated with it. Like her big song she sings is Somewhere That's Green, and she's just singing about like this like simple life that she wants, and it made me cry every time because it was so earnest and so like, connected to me somehow. She's like kind of awkward, and I just really love that show. I think it's like a perfect musical. I think it's so well done, and if you've not seen it, I recommend 100%. The movie's great too. Even just watch the movie.
And on the flip side, who least resembles you that you've played?
I think I once played a tap dancing box of soap. Not necessarily that.
Yeah.
I really had to dig. I mean, I really had to dig deep with that if I wanted to like sit and find the humanity in the character.
Yeah. Does it make you look at soap differently afterwards? Do you?
I suppose if the song could dance, the things that it would do. But no, I mean, I can really find a piece of myself in everything that I've played, which is great. And it's fun, like no matter who they are. Even like a lot of because my clown characters are often like gross and mean. And I'm neither of those things in my day-to-day life, but there's like a piece of me that's in there. And it's like fun to grab onto that and be like, no, this, I get it. I get this.
Taylor, what do you want to be remembered by, both in your career and also just what you want to be remembered by the people who know you?
Yeah. So one of my day jobs is that I teach yoga at a yoga studio, and in yoga there's like this concept of like sankalpa, which is like your purpose, and mine that I found in Sanskrit, the word is Leela, and it means divine play. And so the thing I most want to bring into the world, and like as a teacher and as a performer and like as a person, is creating a space where folks feel comfortable enough to play and to really be themselves, whatever that is, all the different layers of that, and not take everything so seriously. It is, but it's not. And at the end of the day, I mean, we have like this one moment for sure. And so I want to be able to inspire people to live in that and find play in that and honesty in that.
That's awesome. Because I do think people get so caught up into they take everything so seriously. I find myself doing that. And sometimes you just need to have someone to like look at, be like, it's not so serious. Like find some play, find some humor, find some whimsy. And like, it gives you perspective.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. I know with stand-up, I've gotten sometimes I get too serious about being goofy, especially, and it's like, oh, that kind of defeats the purpose. It's supposed to be goofy. Like, I'd be like, no, my rash joke must be 5 minutes long, and then you're like, you should take it easy. But also wanted to say the podcast used to be called How Would You Like to Die? The algorithm believed it was for violent content.
No.
So
we had to pivot.
We have to change it to How Would You Like to Live? Now, audio, it's fine, but just the titles, when they see it in the words, the internet, it doesn't. So we'll still ask the same question that we usually do. We interview people who are living their lives the fullest. We ask all of our guests this question. Taylor Rey, how would you like to die?
That's such a tough question. It's like triggers the existential dread. But I mean, it's a boring answer, but I hope I'm just old and I just go to sleep and that's it. And like, I think maybe it's controversial, but I think kind of it's nice when you're very old, when you kind of don't know where you are. And maybe it's like a kindness in a way if you sort of kind of lose touch with reality. Like my grandmom at the end of her life, she was like experiencing Alzheimer's and dementia. And I remember like visiting her, and she was like talking about how she had just been watching like a bear parade. It's like, oh yeah, it's almost time for the bear parade. And I was like, and my mom and everybody are so upset. Like, oh, she's like, so she doesn't know where she is. But to me, it's like, that's kind of lovely. I mean, she's at the bear parade.
Yeah, having a kind of a window into the world where the bear parade could be happening out your door is
That's
pretty cool.
crazy.
Yeah.
I don't need to be in touch when it's like the end of days. That's all right. I don't know exactly what's going on.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Taylor. We really appreciate it. Thank you. You've been a great guest. Thank you.
It's so lovely to be here. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Taylor.